All right, let's dive right into this explainer. Today, we're decoding the deeply poetic lyrics of a phenomenal Hades and Persephone musical track. Now, if you think you already know the classic mythological tale of the Lord of the Dead, well, buckle up because you're about to see it in a completely new light. By really zooming in on the specific language used in this song, we're going to completely subvert those old storytelling tropes we usually just take for granted. We're unraveling a much more complicated narrative here, one about duty, isolation, and massive compromise, all to finally understand what actually motivates Hades.
I rule the things that never end, and still my heart grows old. Right away, that line just completely shatters our preconceptions, doesn't it? Right off the bat, he's not framed as this sinister, cackling villain that pop culture loves to paint him as. No, he's a profoundly lonely, eternal king. I mean, think about it. He's completely surrounded by immortality and absolute permanence, yet he still feels the incredibly mortal heavy weight of his own heart aging in the dark.
Which brings us to part one, the king in the cold and the intense isolation of the underworld. You really have to look at the massive contrast between the vibrant world up above and his domain way down below. On one side, you've got Olympus. It's this realm completely defined by laughter, lightning, and basking in the sun's bright gold. Hades actually notes that there's an empty seat up there on Olympus, a place that literally was never his to claim. And then on the flip side, you have his daily reality in the underworld. It's just endless quiet time, a palace made entirely of cold stone, and what the song brilliantly calls heatless gold. It's a stunning lyrical juxtaposition, really. Just absolute vibrant life versus absolute crushing stillness. And he establishes this incredibly stoic nature right from the jump. He says, I don't beg for love or feasting. I don't chase the sun's bright gold. He isn't greedy for all that warmth and excess of the surface world. In fact, he actually accepts his desolate kingdom. He gets that every soul has its own price, and he's just resigned himself to being the last light in the cold. He sits there in the quiet, completely refusing to demand the superficial joys of the gods above him. Let's move into part two, a misunderstood ruler and the real burden of his duty. The lyrics don't shy away from his terrible reputation among mortals either. He observes, they whisper my name like a warning, like I'm the curse in every prayer. I mean, wow. The people on the surface treat his very name as a literal dark omen. To them, he represents nothing but suffering and the end of all things. So he's alienated, right? Not just geographically, but by the deeply rooted fear of literally every living person. But when we actually decode his perspective, we find out he sees himself so differently. He identifies simply as the border. He's just the light in the darkness, carrying out this impossibly heavy, totally necessary duty tied to the keys in his hand. It's a job where he absolutely cannot fail. He's maintaining that fragile boundary between life and death that literally no one else is willing or even able to uphold. He's not malice, he's just inevitable structure. This leads us to part three, the cost of connection and the true motivation behind the abduction. And this is where it hits hard. I never wanted screams or war. I only wanted someone to see me. This lyric completely strips away that traditional, malicious kidnapping narrative we're all so used to hearing. It's just incredibly vulnerable. It reveals this desperate, basic yearning for acknowledgement and connection after literally eons of being the curse in every prayer. He didn't want violence. He wasn't out there plotting world domination. He basically just wanted to be perceived as something other than a total monster. The song describes Persephone so beautifully as a flower in winter. Hades just wanted to bring a little bit of green sweetness from the north into his kingdom of cold stone. By bringing her into the deep, he was really just hoping to share his world. He wanted to introduce some flicker of life and warmth into this endless quiet time that had otherwise completely broken his spirit. But of course, actions have consequences. Part 4, a world in ash and the earthly fallout. The lyrics vividly paint a picture of a dying world, all as a direct reaction to Persephone's absence from the sun. We're talking iron rivers, endless nights, and a completely sunless sky. Time itself literally stands still. The sun just goes into hiding, and the vibrant earth turns straight to ash and shades of gray. Demeter's grief, or just the sheer loss of the earth's sweetness, creates this screaming, freezing, apocalyptic reality above ground. Realizing the massive scale of this devastation, Hades makes a pretty profound sacrifice. He says, the world was dying slow, so I opened up my hands and the treaty wrote itself. Think about that. He could have stubbornly held on to the one single light he finally brought into his darkness. But instead, he opens his hands. He chooses compromise rather than watching the earth turn completely to ash. Which brings us to part 5, the 6-month treaty, where love becomes a season. 6. 6 months. This specific number is repeated over and over and over in the lyrics, echoing almost like a heartbeat or the ticking of a clock. It represents the cyclical, entirely inescapable nature of their binding destiny. It's the mathematical core of the treaty that ultimately saves the world, but completely splits their lives in two. This cyclical timeline perfectly shows exactly how the wheel turns. Step 1, 6 months of winter fall upon the earth, during which Persephone is down below. But then the wheel turns again for step 2. Spring wakes, the ice breaks, life has to move forward, and Persephone returns to the sky. And for those 6 long months of spring and summer, Hades stays in absolute silence in the deep of the underworld, just waiting. And this line brilliantly illustrates the absolute core message of the track. Love became a season. Their relationship, which was born out of intense isolation and this desperate need to be seen, literally transformed into the very seasons that dictate life and death on Earth. The mechanics of the planet's survival are tethered entirely to their romance and to their separation.
Ultimately, this pact granted both of them a fragmented existence. As the lyrics say, they get half the sky and have a home. They're bound by a destiny that requires them to constantly share and constantly sacrifice, just to maintain the balance of the entire world. Yes, they have a home, but they only ever get half the sky at a time.
So I'll leave you with this question to ponder. Did Hades actually achieve a victory for love by finally claiming half the sky and finding a true home? Or did this treaty effectively permanently sentence him to half a lifetime of endless silence and waiting in the dark? It completely changes how you view the changing of the seasons, doesn't it? Thanks for joining me on this explainer. And remember, always keep questioning the myths you thought you knew.